Hey, how you doing there, America? And welcome to another riveting episode of The War Room. I'm your host, Dirk Hardleck, the greatest in America. I'm sorry, ladies. America's the only woman for me. We're back reading some more of the great exploits of the most American CIA counterterrorism operative of all time, BIFF Roberts, who spent the first 3 chapters being heroically shot at on the slopes in Cortina. Now, we've seen him in action, almost deftly dodging bullets and spending an entire chapter in the hospital, but we're back, and it's now 1 week later since the harrowing incident. How is our hero, Biff, doing? This is Existential Threats by R. Lawrence. Chapter 4, The Communique, Cortina. 1 week later.
Now, that didn't hurt a bit, did it?
Dr. DiNardo asked.
The clips are out, and the wound's healing fine. The stair strips will come off in the shower in a few days.
Nope, Doc, you're right. Clips are better than stitches. No pain removing them. Biff sat in the exam room at the hospital, gently stretching his arm. Thanks, you did a great job. The doctor nodded.
Be sure to follow my rehab recommendations. They're key to your complete recovery.
Promise I will, Doc.
When are you heading back to the States?
10 days or so. I want to spend some time getting to know Patricia's children. Dr. DiNardo smiled.
Lovely family. Her children grew up with my boys. I got to know them well.
Really? Small world, isn't it?
I'll say, my boys couldn't beat her daughter in slalom races. Not even close. Alessandra is a phenomenal skier.
I saw a short sample of her amazing skills on New Year's morning, just before I was shot. The doctor's smile faded.
A regrettable circumstance, but fortunately, you survived.
His face brightened.
But, time to move on. You have a lot of life ahead of you, and a wonderful new companion to share your experiences with.
Biff appreciated the doctor's upbeat remarks and attempts to lighten the mood. The doctor was understandably reluctant to revisit the sensitive subject of the assassination attempt, and wisely focused on the future. Biff agreed. There was no need to dwell on a near tragedy. Never mind the fact that, it was assassination on a high-ranking CIA operative. But hey, let's fucking move on. Dr. DiNardo knew Biff's high-profile CIA job made him a target, and that a rough road could lie ahead. The mayor hadn't been able to resist letting him in on that secret, along with unsolicited, titillating gossip of this operative's complicated life. I would think that's classified, and you wouldn't want them talking about that stuff. Maybe? The mayor wasn't mean or malicious. He just couldn't help sharing details about this exciting American. Somehow, though, Dr. DiNardo thought Gio's story didn't fit this man, Roberts. His patient didn't seem to possess the image the doctor associated with top spies. He couldn't imagine this man blowing someone away like the clandestine agents depicted in the movies, but he did seem like a good match for Patricia.
Best of luck to you and Patricia,
the doctor added.
She's a remarkable woman. Her family has been a big part of our life here in Cortina.
Biff hesitated briefly before responding, not sure how much of his and Patricia's private life he should share, even with a doctor. Patricia's been very good to me. Biff spoke in his customary gentlemanly manner. I appreciate your concern and advice. You're correct. Patricia is a remarkable woman.
You are a lucky man in more ways than one. Count your blessings.
The doctor glanced at his watch.
Sorry, I must excuse myself. 3 calls.
Dr. DiNardo shook Biff's hand, patted him on his good shoulder, and then rushed off to complete his rounds. A half hour later, with Biff and Tim in the back seat. Patricia pulled her car into the freshly plowed driveway of her magnificent hillside chalet. Snow was piled 3 feet high on each side of the drive, and drifts covered the bases of the huge conifers that framed the long uphill driveway. Her Mercedes GLK 450 4x4 snow tires made the climb easily. There you go, Mercedes! A winter wonderland, Biff observed. Once in the garage, Tim assisted Biff out of the SUV, saying,
"Careful! Maybe a bit icy."
"Hold my good arm, Tim," Biff said. "Don't want to risk a fall." They entered through the garage mudroom, brushed off their shoes, and hung up their coats. They were promptly greeted by a crowd of children and grandchildren, all cheering loudly as they welcomed Biff, with balloons and banners flying and paper holiday horns blaring. The dazzling celebration was meant to reenact the one he had missed on New Year's Eve. Across the entryway, Biff noticed a buffet awaited them in the spacious dining room, with maids bustling in and out in preparation for the family festivities. The whole chalet projected a festive holiday atmosphere. "Wow!" Biff grinned. "What a reception, Patricia." A sign held by one of Donatello's kids read, "Welcome home, Mr. Roberts!" Home? Biff reflected, glancing at Patricia inquisitively. She smiled. "I guess you're in, big fellow. Welcome to my family." "You set this up?" he accused her, his tone one of mock reprimand. "Come on." Patricia shook her head. "No, it was Enzo's idea, really. Believe me, he's the family instigator. He confided their plans to welcome you home when you came back from the hospital." "They hardly know me, Patricia," Biff said, puzzled. "But I do appreciate their hospitality. That's a big jump forward." "It seems they respect their mother's judgment. If you're good enough for me, they figure you're good enough for them." She took his hand. "This is their way of expressing their acceptance to you. Although you didn't have to get shot to earn their high regard." "Oh, he's going above and beyond that, Biff!" she added, smiling widely. "Just go with the flow." In fact, Biff had already reached that conclusion, guessing correctly that if her grown children observed she was happy with him, that was all that mattered. They'd been through a terrible tragedy together. Their family bond was powerful, their resilience robust, and their desire for mother's happiness paramount. After a wonderful buffet, some drinks, and pleasant chit-chat, Biff excused himself, a little wobbly after the last glass of champagne. From holiday toasts, Biff lay down and took a long nap in Patricia's bed, one of the most comfortable naps of his life. 2 hours later, a soft knock on the door woke him. Tim entered with a look of concern. "Sorry to wake you, Biff! Got an urgent communique from Admiral Delaney." After Biff climbed out of bed, Tim handed him the classified printout from the makeshift secure communication center he'd set up at the chalet. It read, "Biff, glad you're okay and out of the hospital. Sorry to interrupt your vacation, but things are hitting the fan back here. Certain situations require your attention as our new counterterrorism director that can't wait until next week when you were originally scheduled to return. The outgoing director's wife, Ann Whitley, was hit by a drunk driver and is in critical condition in the University Hospital in Georgetown. Naturally, Ralph must be by her bedside. The DOD needs an intelligence estimate by next week on evolving situations in Syria, North Korea, and China. I've arranged a briefing by your new deputy, Captain Tyler Dubane, at Rose Hill Farm in 48 hours. One of our G5s will pick you up tomorrow in Venice. Tim Cochran has made all of the necessary arrangements. Happy New Year. Admiral Delaney, DCI. Rose Hill Farm, Biff said, looking inquisitively at Tim. My new deputy, Dupain? Tim nodded. While you were in the hospital, Patricia spoke with the Admiral on a secure line. They decided to set up an office for you. A mini Langley replica at Rose Hill to spare you driving to Langley and allow you to concentrate on getting well. They've arranged for in-home rehabilitation services, Tim continued. A PT staff, machines, the whole 9 yards. The Admiral lives just down the road, so you can conduct business while recuperating. Without recuperating? Sure, what the fuck? It goes without saying that CIA standard operating procedures will be observed at your home with complete security. All the details will be taken care of by our NSA, including a complete communication system with security teams. Rockman engineered that. He says his regards, by the way. Nice setup, Biff said. That'll work. The Admiral and Patricia seem to collaborate well in my absence. What's brewing? God only knows. I'm not privy. Obviously, the Admiral didn't want to include any specific details in his communique, but I sense a crisis stirring. Gotcha. Tell me about Dupain. New guy. Good rep. Came over from NSA. A cyber spook with good creds. Sort of a hybrid officer. Education. Annapolis. 89. Top 10th. Biff nodded. Impressive. Any field experience? 5 years, mix of Iraq and Afghanistan paramilitary exposure, special ops, and Navy SEAL. Sea action or desk jockey coordinator? Biff asked. Action! Lots, in fact. Decorations? Purple Heart, Tim said, plus a bronze and silver star. Fallujah. It'll do. Should. No questions. Don't have time to tie up loose ends here regarding the snipers. Where do we stand? Bring me up to speed. The investigation has made a lot of progress the past week, Tim said. The story will blow your mind. The scope of their evil and the intricacy of their networking demonstrate what we're up against. Gino's boys have good connections and detective instincts. They cashed in some chips with allied intel agencies, which came through. The connections have fascinating ramifications for the CIA's counterterrorism program. Can't wait to hear the gory details. Shoot. The dead handler is a Lebanese Arab with a French father, born in Algeria over 40 years ago, but grew up in Beirut in an upscale mixed ethnic community. Socialized mostly with the French sector residents, seems he avoided the Muslim community. Reports said he was reasonably fluent in French with a command of both Arabic and Farsi, some limited English. Biff shook his head. Weird combination. Muslim-French mix. It's not fucking weird. Muslims are everywhere. There's a billion of them. Probably a bastard, since Muslims don't intermarry with infidels. You don't know what you're fucking talking about. I suppose there might have been a French foreign legionnaire in that Arab woodpile. What? Both men laughed. Ha 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 ha! What a cheap. French spent a lot of time in Lebanon, Tim said. Anyhow, Handler's name is, or was, Rashid Azi Kadura, a top lieutenant of Lebanon's Hezbollah leader, Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah. It's important I get that name right. That's a bombshell connection, Biff said. Who confirmed it? Both Pakistani ISI and Mossad verified the handler's identity from his photo and prints. Pretty straightforward. This character had a long resume in their database. His DNA wasn't on file, but that doesn't matter now. Cortina never operated under an alias, had an established quasi-radical Islamic history, but lived a relatively secular lifestyle. A bit of hypocrisy involved there, Biff mused. He knew parts of Lebanon were relatively liberal, fucking liberals, with fringe radicals like Hezbollah Shiites in the southern sector of Beirut and moderate Sunni Islamists in the north part of town. Rashid was a contradiction in terms, Tim said. Not a foaming at the mouth, dedicated jihadist, but more intellectually involved in the Islamist cause. According to his dossier, why the personal dichotomy? Reports said he enjoyed the good life in Beirut's French sector. Maybe that explains the apparent contradiction and lack of religious fervor. He had other passions occupying his mind. Probably couldn't focus on Islam with a big heart on. That raunchy remark broke Biff up. He often found Tim's briefing style entertaining. This time, Biff laughed so hard he jarred his injured shoulder and grimaced. Such ribaldry! Tim frowned. You alright, Biff? Got a bit carried away with your wisecrack, your excellent japes, your brutal commentary on the Muslims. You go, man, you go. Jarred my wound. I'll live. Carry on. According to Mossad, this attack on you appears to be Cortina's first designated hit job. Previously, he'd been relegated to Hezbollah planning ops, not field duty. Both intel agencies concur with our premise that Coons probably initiated the plot as a contract assassination to carry out your fatwa. The reason why they chose not to execute the takedown themselves and instead involved Hezbollah and a North African, a suspected AQIM gunman, remains a mystery. That's puzzling. AQIM is Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, right? That's correct! Our intel agency suspect it might involve a weapons exchange or a test run of their affiliates' Islamist commitment and competence. Mossad thinks AQIM may be auditioning for the Big Tent. Al-Qaeda and a working relationship with Iran, providing armed support via their proxy Hezbollah. Big Tent, what is this, the Great British Bake Off? Very interesting theory, Biff said. Sunni AQ collaborating with Shiite Hezbollah? Probably an accurate analysis. Appears Iran's Revolutionary Guard is outsourcing Quds hit jobs, networking with AQ affiliates. Tell me more. Maybe they share a common goal. Terrorism. Fascinated by this Hezbollah disclosure, Biff sought relevant connections in the attempt to assassinate him. This was an astounding new twist in Iran's evil machinations, exporting and coordinating terrorism through outsourcing. Because as we all know, Iran is literally only known for terrorism. They've never done anything else in the history of ever. America! How's the African shooter tie-in? Biff wondered. Why the shift in continents? Why not simply employ a Hezbollah shooter? Why complicate the op with his involvement? Maybe it's a quid pro quo arrangement that you intimated? Don't know the contingency plan, the exchange agreement. It's not a full sentence. Probably involves arms, possibly a test run to assess their effectiveness. Tim sighed. We need to figure that out. I'm sure strings were attached. This scheme is off the grid. If it was off the grid, you wouldn't know about it. That's what that term means. Guarantee it wasn't a charity deal. Biff grinned, absorbed in this wild tale, which I'm sure you are too. The Revolutionary Guard was literally going to the ends of the earth to kill him. Even hiring Africans. The Hezbollah connection didn't surprise him. It represented an Iranian proxy group well established in fostering terrorism abroad. But the African connection floored him. He sardonically wondered if he should be flattered. Tim noticed he was perplexed. Got that right, Biff? It's definitely not a charity motive. These guys would sell their mother. You could bet strings were attached. The gnarly African arrangement definitely reeks of ulterior nefarious motives. Tim paused. But now, the assassination plot gets even more intriguing. Wait till you hear this next bit. Can't wait. This convoluted scheme is blowing me away. It's like Tom Clancy on steroids. The dead sniper had distinguishing tribal scars typical of Senegal, another nation with historical French influence like Lebanon. It was an easy trace for DGSE in Paris to ID him. They had a long file on his hardcore terrorist history in North Africa, mostly Algeria. DGSE information was corroborated by Mossad, who also has followed his radical activity in Algeria. In recent years, they discovered his close association with Khalid Abu El Abbas, who is a Mossad and French HVT. HVTs, high-value targets, because no one fucking knows what that means at all, were those considered most threatening. Thank you for explaining that. Nobody would have guessed that. Tim continued. Mossad considers him a time bomb in North Africa. This sniper evidently was a top lieutenant for El Abbas's AQIM affiliate who designated this tribal dude to take you out. This involves the militant Algerian leader of AQIM, El Abbas? You nailed it, Tim answered, nodding. The one in the same notorious terrorist. Shooter's name was Mustafa Sambaba. He migrated as a youth from Senegal to fight as a mercenary in Algeria against the French years ago. Following an extensive indoctrination in Timbuktu, Mali, that hotbed of Islamist Salafism, he was good to go in Algiers, because you fucking know how Timbuktu, Mali is totally just brimming with Islamist Salafism. Hold on a minute. Biff began pacing the room. I'm starting to see a pattern, connection. AQIM, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, spreading out, uniting Sunni ultra-conservatives, Islamic extremists everywhere, African Sunni Salafists aligning with Saudi Sunni Wahhabists, cats and dogs living together, bringing all Sunni Muslim extremists together on the march. Appears their master plan is to project a unified front, launching jihad over the entire Muslim world. Imagine a Twinkie filled with Muslims. A great Muslim Twinkie. Islam is not just a Sunday religion, Biff added. It's a 7-day-a-week commitment to a religious lifestyle perverted by extremists as an activist agenda. I got the big picture. They're organizing a front under the AQ banner. Yeah, it's not, a singular Sunday affair, yeah? That appears to be the case. A concise analysis. In recent years, Samba Ba became associated with a radical AQ affiliate in Algiers, just across the Mediterranean from Italy's boot. Because that's how people refer to parts of Italy in, important CIA conversations. Quite a convenient location. A short flight to Cortina, huh? Think about that. AQIM's offshoot there is an ultra-radical group called the Signers in Blood Brigade. That is the most unoriginal, stupid collection of words ever put together to create a name. Seriously. Signers and blood. Algeria. Come on. Biff said, "Nope! The signers are particularly ruthless, but..." The signers? It sounds like Shriners, and I can't fucking take it seriously, because I just picture them with little fezzes driving around, and instead of, like, bullets, their guns just pop out the bang banner. The signers. The deadliest weapon of all. Quills! Nope! The signers are a particularly ruthless battalion of veteran Algerian fighters led by the one-eyed gangster Mokhtar Belmokhtar! Mokhtar Belmokhtar! A vicious, egotistical jihadist who fought the Russians in Afghanistan as a teenager. He returned to Algiers to try to overthrow the government in 1992. Samba Ba became one of his top gunners several years ago, alleged to be almost as radical as his boss, who, according to the Paris sleuths at DGSE, is fucking crazy. Tim continued, because of course he did. This arrogant AQIM battalion commander supposedly told the AQ leadership, Al-Zawahiri, to fuck off. Told him he planned to do his own thing in North Africa. Something spectacular to establish his legacy, inferring he didn't need them. Biff, stop pacing. No way. We're dealing with a real wacko. Even for a terrorist, it appears. Mind-boggling, Biff! Tim agreed. Hang on! The punchline is coming! It came when I started reading this. Punchline. I'm breathless in anticipation. Go on. Biff shook his head in disbelief at the off-the-wall story. I think we're all doing the same thing right now. Mokhtar Belmokhtar? I can't keep a straight face with that. This is the military commander of AQIM, an unenviable job organizing these disparate AQ affiliates. His rap sheet includes kidnapping, drug deals, smuggling cigarettes, the most heinous of crimes, and weapon stealing. Weapon stealing, drug deals, kidnapping, and don't fucking forget that he smuggled cigarettes, that son of a bitch! He's one badass dude! Only badass dudes smuggle cigarettes. I'm convinced he earned that appellation. Guess what his alias is? Omar the Tent Maker? Ha 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 ha! Biff quipped. Both laughed because they don't have a fucking sense of humor and they're stupid and they're probably Mike Huckabee. Biff thought Tim's story bordered on bizarre, almost farcical. Gee, I can't think of anything else that does too. But Tim appeared quite serious. This is getting ludicrous, Tim. Biff said. I got it. Mokhtar isn't the kind of guy who hangs out in Christian Science reading rooms. He sounds like a terrorist on steroids! And a loose cannon. There's a loose cannon terrorist, motherfuckers. Watch out. He doesn't play by the terrorist rules. He plays by his own fucking rules. Hell yeah! This one-eyed gangster. It wasn't him. It was the one-eyed gangster on the hill. Biff was still shaking his head in disbelief. So, what's the punchline? I'm dying to hear. This book got published. Ludacris describes it well. Catch this dude's alias, Biff. That's the punchline. Ready? Ready. Mokhtar Belmokhtar parades around his nom de guerre. Khalid Abu El Abbas, AQIM's leader. The same guy who sent Mustafa Sambaba to kill you in Cortina on New Year's Day. Boom! Revelation, motherfuckers. Next chapter. Chapter 5. Winging home. The fuck? The next day. So, Tim, I still can't figure it out. What the fuck is the plot of this fucking book? How did assassins know we would be on top of the ski run on New Year's morning? Biff and Tim were huddled in the rear section of the CIA G5 winging its way from Venice to Andrews AFB outside Washington, D.C. They were halfway through the 9-hour journey. Biff kept bouncing questions off Tim. Now that his cognitive faculties had recovered, Biff attempted to sort out the facts in his close encounter with a sniper's bullet. It tried to probe him. Patricia was sound asleep in a recliner up front. She had stayed up until 3 a.m. in Cortina, exacting promises from her children to visit them soon in Virginia at their newly purchased historic farm, Rose Hill. Her children had given her a thumbs up on Biff, happy that she had found such a nice person to spend the rest of her life with, even if she'd be living far away in the U.S. and not Tel Aviv. She was ecstatic they had accepted Biff, and she fell asleep with a smile on her face and a song in her heart. Thought you never ask, Tim answered. I know it's been nagging you. Tim laughed. I'm surprised you didn't figure it out. Losing your touch? Tim asked. I've been so tripped out on narcotics that I thought I was losing it at times, Biff said, sighing. I experienced detached euphoria, like watching an edited movie of my life, man. It was crazy, like there were these whacked out colors, scattered, disoriented glimpses flashing by, like I was looking in from the outside. It's been weird, Tim, and disjointed thoughts one after another, almost psychedelic. Why the fuck are we describing this? Who cares? We get it. Don't think I was hallucinating, but maybe I was. You fucking were! Biff shook his head. Anyway, you're right. I should have figured it out by now. Just gotta get my head back on straight. Sorry, pal. Fill in my blank spots. Just kidding, you. Drugs scramble your mind, and you suffered major trauma. Confusion is understandable. I know. I've been shot twice. Quite familiar with the effect of morphine, boss. Screws up your mind. Last year in Tel Aviv, during the shootout at Patricia's townhouse, Biff had seen Tim get shot in the chest by a Hamas terrorist. I'm guessing this is the previous book or a book before that, so thank you for bringing us up to speed. The military round had gone right through a lung, collapsing it. Biff thought Tim was a goner. He'd been on some strong pain meds after, because that's really all he needed. No surgery, just throw some OxyContin in that son of a bitch and watch him fucking go. But anyway, Tim continued, as to how the assassins tracked us up to the mountaintop, the explanation is simple. Patricia's cell phone set up their mission. So Patricia's the leaker. Once the bad guys had her number, they tailed her. They observed her activities buying gondola lift tickets and did a little snooping. Like, sorry, must have dialed the wrong number. Sort of thing to her home phone and to her cell phone. It was elementary. A child could have done it, right? Right? Absolutely. Baby's first hack. They followed the phone's beacon with a GPS tracking device and traced her movements to the Tafana location. Biff nodded. It's a pretty straightforward explanation. I didn't even know she carried her smartphone up there to ski that morning. She would have left a telltale electronics trail, which should have occurred to him. Her chalet was clean as a whistle, swept, no bugs. Domestic help vetted. I know. How'd that cell GPS factor escape me? I'm the greatest fucking American CIA guy known to man. don't know. Maybe you relaxed for once? Tim said, smiling. But Patricia's a grandmother with family and young grandkids visiting her home. In an emergency, the au pair and maid had instructions to contact her on the mountain. The thought that someone was tracking her GPS never occurred to her, you, or anyone. The assassins were clever. And you failed at your jobs. That's literally your fucking jobs. And you failed spectacularly at it. America! Even though Biff had been strung out on morphine, he was still embarrassed that such an obvious conclusion had eluded him. It was a natural thing for Patricia to do, the practical, a motherly thing. Biff was gonna have to put her bitch ass back in place like a man. But the prime question remains, Biff said, how did the perpetrators get her number in the first place? Now that's an interesting and amusing story, which will take several chapters to get through. While you were hospitalized, Gino and I investigated that critical aspect of the case, with a focus on discovering how the assassins knew precisely where to position themselves. We played a hunch. We figured they needed inside information regarding Patricia's whereabouts, knowing you'd be not far away from her. Her home address and phone numbers were unlisted, so how would the bad guys find them out? Going to a central office, the mayor's downtown headquarters, appeared the logical place to start. I'm following you. Down this very narrow and straight corridor you're leading me. We discovered her phone number was innocently divulged by an old Palestinian Arab, an expat working in the mayor's office. Name is Bashar Hayyan. So they're in the nature of giving out unlisted numbers? That's kind of not innocent. That's kind of not your job. That's kind of a thing you get fired for. Biff frowned. Was this guy complicit in the plot to kill me? Gino said there's absolutely no way this old man was a co-conspirator. Assured me he's a non-militant, secular, not a mean bone in him. No Islamic agenda, no baggage, no history of any troublemaking. A non-militant Palestinian Arab? Biff said. Isn't that an oxymoron? You're a fucking moron! Listen, Tim said. This old codger is one sandwich short of a picnic. Shut the fuck up and don't try metaphor. Or is that a simile? No, that's a metaphor. And you're still fucking bad at it. Didn't take me long to pick up on fact. But Gino swears he's totally harmless and said there's no way he's involved in the plot. Is he sure? Basher has worked in Giovanni's office for over 20 years. Always got his job done. Never out of line. Good reputation. But tolerated his odd behavior because he was harmless. Oh. Jumped ahead of myself. One moment. His co-workers recognized he was a bit around the bend, but tolerated his odd behavior because he was harmless and friendly, and actually a colorful relief to the usual office humdrum of, fucking militant Palestinian Arabs. Tim added, if the assassins had an accomplice in Cortina, Gino will find him. Or her. Let's not be sexist now. Women can be part of assassinations too. And, everybody else who's not binary. Gino's a sharp cookie with a good team. However, a local conspiracy doesn't seem to be the case. It appears the assassins operated alone. Interesting background. But what were the details of Bashar's interaction with them? Oh, no, it's Basher up here. I'm literally looking at it, and it says Basher with an E. And now it says Bashar with an A. You suck! Where the fuck was I? Bashar acknowledged without hesitation that he gave Patricia's home and cell number to an Arab visitor from Beirut. The man claimed he was trying to locate her to deliver a personal message from an old Lebanese friend in Tripoli. Bashar said, or Bashar, whoever the fuck he is, it's not unusual to be loved by anyone, or to field such requests. The Muslim visitor explained that her phone number and address were unlisted in the directory, and he had stopped by the mayor's office to inquire how to contact her. Bashar made no attempt to cover up anything. He was completely straightforward in his response to her questions. Somewhat plausible, Biff conceded, but he didn't respect her privacy. Thank you! Granted, he's not terribly sophisticated. That's not the issue. You get what you see. Incidentally, Bashar volunteered the man's description, and it fit with one of the assassins we took out, presumably the shooter's handler. While we can't be 100% certain he wasn't player in the plot, Bashar gave a 99% convincing performance consistent with his past history. Gino insists he doesn't think Bashar was involved. We're not sure about Bashar, but we're pretty sure Bashar wasn't involved. What led you and Gino to suspect a local Muslim link with my case in the first place? Because the guy who wrote this fucking hates Muslims. It was a complicated plot. Assassinate you on the famous ski slopes of Cortina and achieve maximum terrorist effect by creating chaos at the resort on holiday. Something that would be sure to grab international headlines. That's their modus operandi. Just say MO. Inside help would have facilitated pulling it off, so it would be logical for the hit team to seek out someone who might be sympathetic to the radical cause. Not many indigenous Muslims in Cortina for us to screen. Local progression. I agree. Gino knew right off that a Muslim worked in the mayor's office, Tim said. So he suggested we start there with a few questions. Coincidentally, the mayor's office was also the bad guy's first stop. This old Muslim was simply a flyer. Was simply a flyer, not was simply a flyer. I'll move on. A random selection who proved very useful to them. Naively divulging confidential information. Edit your fucking book, by the way. All the perpetrators needed were the phone numbers and the chalet's address. Bashar gave them several days ago to initiate their surveillance and set up the scheme. Yeah, I'd say Bashar's information damn near got me killed. Innocent or not. Tim nodded. Right about that, Bashar said they conversed in Arabic and hit it off. Said this Muslim had a strange accent with a European inflection of Arabic, an unusual accent like the Lebanese he dealt with in Palestine. Where is this going? The French had a big influence in Lebanon over the years. Possibly a connection. Would you say it was a French connection? Thank you, folks. I'll be here all week. Don't know. Evidently, this visiting Muslim dude fed Bashar a line of bullshit. Old guy bought it lock, stock, and barrel. Like I said, he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. Someone once told him the world was gonna roll him. Bashar gave him Patricia's private numbers from Giovanni's Rolodex. Who the fuck still has a Rolodex? Saw no problem doing it, and wasn't the least apologetic to us. Wondered why we thought it was such a big deal. In fact, like I said, he's not too perceptive. So, you follow your instincts? Isn't that profiling, suspecting a Muslim connection? Not very PC. Shame on you, Tim. Biff said sarcastically, fuck off! Fucking jackass. Yes, I guess it is. Unabashed, Tim recognized Biff was teasing him. He knew profiling was a hot button issue for Biff, the most American of all Americans. Fucking PC motherfuckers. Profiling bad guys was a logical and vital necessity in his profession, but Biff had seen sensitivity concerns override rationality time after time. The two are not mutually exclusive, you dumb fuck. It just didn't make sense to him, and it impeded efficiency. That was the gist of his problem fighting terrorists, especially the homegrown variety, balancing national security against civil liberties. A delicate catch-22. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. No, there's context. There's tons of fucking variables to how you profile properly without being a racist, bigoted piece of shit. But you have to have more than 2 fucking brain cells to figure that out. Sorry. Tim also understood how bitterness shaded Biff's perception of Muslims because of fucking course. Here we go. This is why we hate Muslims in the book. A radical Islamic homegrown jihadist had assassinated Biff's wife last Easter on the steps of the Episcopal Church in San Francisco. The sniper had chosen an innocent woman as a soft target and an alternative target since the Quds, Iran's Revolutionary Guard's terror unit, had failed to kill Biff on several occasions. So now we're gonna fucking hate 1 billion human beings because one piece of shit did a piece of shit thing. Great rationale. Sorry, Biff, Tim said. Know how you feel about profiling in Muslims, but he hates Muslims, so profiling should be a good thing to him. None of this makes any goddamn sense. Mary Beth's murder, an Iranian contract hit job, had devastated Biff. He still seethed inside from the brutal, senseless act. After that, it was all about retribution. He was in a position to exact sanctioned retribution, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. His reckoning and the company's reprisal. Use periods. Or at least use a semicolon there. Fuck me. To Biff, all radical Muslims were potential risks and suspect until proven otherwise. Radical Muslims are the terrorists. Non-radical Muslims are normal fucking people. Like, 1 billion! There's 1 billion of them! How do you not be able to differentiate the two? Fuck. He closely scrutinized him, his bias founded on bad experiences. This is the greatest CIA guy of all fucking time. Mad dogs staggering down the street, tongues hanging out and salivating, are most likely rabid and should be shot. Biff said. Fanatics carrying AK-47s, planning anarchy and terror in the name of Allah, should trigger the same response. Wait for them to yell, Allah Akbar. And it's too late. Biff shook his head. Profile them, damn it. Be proactive. You just told him not to! For example, it was absolute nonsense to treat that Fort Hood loony psychiatrist as a workplace violence case. What BS? He was yelling Allah Akbar. He regularly communicated with radicals in Yemen. Give me a friggin' break. Why don't you give me a friggin' break, you dumb, bigoted, xenophobic fuckbag? Some of the guys, those guys in the DOJ have their heads up their asses. Remember, if they're Muslim, automatically assume they're a terrorist. Now, if they're white, they're mentally ill. R. Lawrence, my friends. God damn it. How do you really feel, Biff? Tim smiled. Other than that, I have no problems with the liberal concept of profiling. I can't fucking put these thoughts together. He grinned, realizing he'd gone off on a tangent, but he offered no apologies. What a rebel. Biff often shared the rabid dog analogy with conservative friends, because they're the only people who'll fucking listen to it. He realized he was becoming a hardcore cynic, possibly perceived as a right-winger, maybe even a wacko, but he really didn't give a rat's ass anymore, and the author is projecting like a motherfucker here. If people thought he was a biased old codger, I mean really fucking projecting. His job entailed killing bad guys before they killed him or some innocent soul like his departed wife. How do I really feel? Bitter. It was rhetorical, you fuck! He confessed to Tim. You could bet your sweet ass on that. No homo. At least Tim and many of his close colleagues understood where he was coming from. Bigotry is totally justified if somebody close to you dies. Many were reluctant to express their private opinions publicly for fear of being labeled bigots because you're being bigots! Stop it! Holy shit! It's like reading a Fox News story. Or one of the pundits from that shitty-ass channel. That was another of Biff's pet peeves. Speech restrictions. Oh, fuck, here we go. Holy shit. Say something that offended the easily offended. Even some statistic they factually could not dispute. 1 billion Muslims in the world, and less than 1% of them are terrorists. There's your statistic. Fuck you. They factually could not dispute, you can't dispute that, shithead, and their default argument would predictably be, you're a racist, or extremist right-winger. Yeah, you are. His reply usually ended the conversation, you can't handle the truth. Also followed by, stupid is as stupid does. And, game over, man! Game over! Because we're just gonna throw out fucking movie quotes. And no, that would not fucking end the conversation. I would laugh that son of a bitch out of the room. What the fuck is... Oh, no, we're still on dipshit. What the fuck is the American society coming to? Biff added. It's time to get real and recognize the existential threats, there's your book title again, facing the country. Are actually the threats within the country, but we'll get to that. Tim realized he had pushed the wrong button. There was no stopping him. This author was willing to go all the way. No PC and totally not triggered. Kill terrorists before they kill you, or fellow Americans. Biff lived by this pragmatic axiom. That's not a bad axiom. Nobody's gonna fucking argue with that. In his experience, negotiation or appeasement were delusional dreams, futile and likely to end in a nightmare. Yeah, kind of what we've been saying about the alt-right Nazi fuckers, but y'all want to fucking give them a free pass. To Biff, history was repeating itself. Like Neville Chamberlain's misguided conciliation policies toward Hitler, many DC politicians unfortunately share the British diplomats' blind spot when dealing with radical Islam, the current international existential threat. Radical Islam is a small section of a wider group of people who follow Islam. There's 1 billion of them. I'm going to say it 1,000 times throughout this entire series. There's 1 billion! And less than 1% are terrorists. You can't call all 1 billion terrorists and then scream, you're being an asshole and 2PC and calling me a bigot. Wah! Dumbasses! Tim realized Biff was ruminating, an innate characteristic of his. Tim paused respectably, knowing he'd set Biff off. You could say he triggered him. But he would resume the conversation momentarily. Tim understood Biff's animosity and suspicions, the controversial subject of Muslim jihadists who were giving Islam a bad name by perverting the interpretation of the Quran. Hey, we're actually having a intelligent, non-bigoted view of Islam. Go figure! It was a thorny problem and difficult to resolve in general, but in Biff's case, also very personal. That right there was a proper analysis of Islam and Islamic terrorism. Not all of them are terrorists, some of them are, and those of them are perverting their religion. Much like people who practice Christianity and go and kill people and murder people in the name of Christianity are perverting Christianity. Hope you learned this thing today. Biff's wounded shoulder ached like hell. He placed another pillow behind it and adjusted the plane's plush seat back, trying to reposition himself to get more comfortable. Antsy, he popped another Advil. He realized he was cranky and a bigot. He usually kept his ultra-conservative philosophy, so you're admitting that it's ultra-conservative. You're admitting that it's extremely right-wing. You're fucking stupid. Regarding terrorists private, there's no such thing. Nobody wants terrorists. They want the terrorists to die. They don't want people going around killing other people. That's not controversial. Knowing it would rankle his liberal friends and colleagues who lived the pipe dream of eventual peace with these fanatics. No, they fucking don't! But Biff knew the terrorists weren't going away. They had declared war on countries. They said, stop, please stop. I know I'm supposed to be doing this as a bit, but no liberal, no intelligent human being has ever said we need to kiss the terrorists. There are a lot of them saying we need to kiss the fucking Nazis, but the terrorists, we're all pretty much in agreement that they need to fuck off and go away. And we've literally been saying these people don't represent Islam, they're horrible people, go kill them, but stop harassing the regular Muslims who are nice people. That's what they've said the entire time, you just don't want to fucking hear that. They had declared war on countries they saw as full of heathens, and they thought in terms of centuries, whatever it would take to dominate the rest of the world. Biff vowed to beef up the CIA Special Activity Division as director of counterterrorism. He'd employ those with special skill sets in special ops. He'd even set up an off-the-books contractual arrangement for the unsavory jobs that the CIA could not risk exposure of involvement. He had a budget, a black vault. He had control. The terrorists would pay for their transgressions. Maybe they would learn not to fuck with America. Sorry, drifted off in thought, Tim. Got off on one of my tangents. Can't help myself. The Langley shrinks think I have serious anger management problem. My answer, really? Any terrorist shoot your wife today? That usually stumps them. Because I'm a master of fucking words and conversation ending. I got a real wit, motherfucker. In answer to your question a few minutes ago, Tim said, you bet your sweet ass, no homo, we profiled. We went to the bank like Willie Sutton because that's where the money is. Your old joke. Just as good as anything that Mike Huckabee has ever tweeted. He added, trying to lighten the mood. In the way only right-wingers can. And our hunch paid off big time. Biff laughed at Tim's analogy because they're both fucking stupid. An old but applicable joke relating the Jesus, don't fucking explain this. I don't care. Relating the career bank robber Willie Sutton's answer to the question of why do you rob so many banks? Shut the fuck up. Biff loved Tim's enthusiasm and talent and his colorful... Jesus Christ, just fucking marry him. Priceless anecdotes. Such as describing this old Bashar guy as... Don't go back to a joke that failed the first fucking time. As one sandwich short of a picnic. Shut the fuck up, you're not clever. Biff got the picture of a bumbling old codger who couldn't recognize a threat if the intruder were a flashing neon sign announcing it. This is fucking fantastic. And guess what? Tim said. This old guy Bashar even told us where the two hitmen were staying on the edge of town. In an old rundown bed and breakfast. Barely a grade above the bar. And youth hostel next door. We got a lot of valuable evidence from the ramshackle room that they never returned to after the mountain shootout. Tell me. Biff's mood was improving, thinking about shooting some more Muslims, apparently. They left vital credentials there in broad view. Lebanese and Algerian passports with their photos, plus personal items, empty whiskey bottles, condoms, and a porno DVD. Sure made our job easy. Muhammad wouldn't approve of the DVD, I'm certain. Biff said, grinning at his classic, joke, because he's totally not PC, friends. Yeah! Rebel! American rebel. Tim smirked. Goddamn hypocrites! He added, and then resumed his briefing, because no Christian has ever watched porn. That discovery quickly led to their ultimate ID by our allied intelligence agencies' coordinated action. In a timely fashion, the Austrian Anti-Terror Agency, ACIPSS, you don't need to tell him, he's the head of the fucking CIA counterintelligence or counterterrorism division. He doesn't need to know that. Reconstructed their journey, tracing the timelines. You were correct in your assumption. They flew in from Dubai to Graz, Austria, on their own passports. Sloppy, huh? Got the weapons at a used gun shop in Graz. Owner remembered them. Said he'd never forget the tattooed black guy. They drove across the northern Italian border in a rented Fiat. All this information confirmed by reliable sources. I'm overwhelmed by the pure Americanness of this novel. This is fantastic. Good story with an interesting twist, explaining how they located us on the mountaintop because of the cell phone. But the seminal question remains unanswered. How in the hell did the bad guys know I'd be in Cortina in the first place? Very few people were privy to my vacation plans. Someone must have leaked my plans, allowing them to set up the hit job. I've been trying to sort that out. No clue yet, Biff! Tim frowned. It's very puzzling, very disturbing. We have troops at Langley all over it. I'm convinced someone betrayed me. Biff said, grimly. Maybe we've got the Italian intelligence agency, AISE. He fucking knows he's CIA! He's leading the counterterrorism division. He knows! All over the case, too. It's high priority. 3 rounds of Bloody Marys later, still pondering that mystery, they both fell sound asleep without an answer to the betrayal quandary. I'm gonna replace this with vodka soon. Chapter 6, Rose Hill Farm, rural Virginia. Early evening. A sling doesn't fit your Renaissance persona, Biff! Admiral Delaney jested. This is why there are no Republican comedians. As they shook hands in the entryway foyer. Not consistent with the image of our new counterterrorism director. How's the shoulder doing? The Admiral brushed snow off his shoes and removed his camel hair overcoat. His attaché and bodyguard, Jim Marshall, hung it on the antique coat rack, smiling at his boss's jibe. Jim noted the dark circles under Biff's eyes, who nevertheless mustered his characteristic grin, obviously toughing it out. Jim thought that there was no way Biff would ever give up. Biff had always been one tough fellow. Looking good, man, Jim said, trying to be positive despite the obvious facts that Biff wasn't looking good. Not by anyone's wildest perception. Jim thought Biff looked haggard. Gunshot wound must have taken a lot out of him. Come on in, gentlemen, Biff said cheerfully, ignoring their jokes. He ushered them into the recently refurbished farmhouse, attractively decorated to Patricia's traditional tastes. He had no input, but approved of her choices. My shoulder's improving, Biff said. Almost got whacked, but I'm gonna make it. Miss is as good as a mile, they say. Guess I caught a break. He grinned again. Jim glanced at the Admiral, who rolled his eyes at the misstatement. The sniper clearly did not miss, Jim thought. It just wasn't a fatal wound, but apparently Biff didn't count getting winged as a hit. The guy was an eternal optimist, except when it came to Muslims, and fuck them. Glad the snow didn't interfere with your drive over here, Biff said. We should get our conference started on time. Got a fire rolling in the den. Biff led them toward the back of the house. Not a big storm like the ones we're supposed to deal with tomorrow, the Admiral said. Roads are clear, but a nor'easter's moving in. Sorry to interrupt your vacation and call you back on such short notice, Biff! But we're up to our asses in alligators at Langley. What? What? We've got a swamp of problems to address. The DoD is on our case for updated intelligence estimates. The General calls me every day, keeps pressuring me. Dubain will brief you in the details at 8 a.m. tomorrow, so get a good night's sleep. I plan to sack out early. Got jet lag. Biff said. Shoulder hurts when I roll over. Wakes me up a lot. But I managed to fall back asleep. As I stepped down into the den, Biff added, Please, make yourselves at home. The one you and Patricia bought. Taking a friendly dig at their conniving. The Admiral smiled like a Cheshire cat. Fuck you. Not sure what you're alluding to, Biff. The Admiral and Patricia had collaborated to buy historic Rose Hill Farm last autumn without Biff's knowledge. But it didn't take long for him to figure out their complicity. He's a fucking genius after all. Good to see you, Admiral, Biff said as they all settled into comfortable chairs. Of course the Admiral knows, Biff thought, but he let it go. You survived another close call, my good man, the Admiral said. You're indestructible. I'm starting to believe in the karma theory circulating around about me, dodging one bullet after another, Biff retorted with a grin. Fortunately, you've continued to prove the theory. You've definitely got karma. Your medical report is excellent, and following 3 months of rehab, you'll be as good as new, thankfully. We need your experience back at Langley. What's brewing? Biff asked. How can my input help? Iran bugging us again? Involves much more than Iran's mischief, the Admiral said. It can wait until Dubain briefs you in the morning, though. Let's just enjoy a nice early dinner together this evening and try to relax. I bought a couple of fine bottles of Napa Valley wine, Chateau Montelena Cabernet Sauvignon, to go with Patricia's meal. Biff smiled. One of my favorites. Thank you. You two seem to communicate well, Admiral. We do, as a matter of fact. The Admiral chuckled, catching his inference, because it was so fucking subtle. Thanks for setting up this home office and rehabilitation for me. You're welcome. It seemed the pragmatic thing to do. Patricia is a remarkable woman to work with. Very organized. She gets the job done. We can conduct our business from here. Not a problem. I'll say, Patricia is truly remarkable. Shall we go on about how fucking remarkable she is? She's goddamn magnificent. I can't fucking believe what a gigantic rainbow of a human being she is. Drinks? Biff offered, looking at both men. Jim looked to the Admiral to answer. Admiral Delaney smiled. Sure, why not? The next morning, a crackling fire warmed Rose Hill's library. Snowflakes, like the author, hit the warm window panes and slowly melted. The cozy room faced eastward, braced against the gustling wind, blowing the flurries up the hill from the Potomac River and blanketing the countryside's rolling hills. The scenic windows provided an exceptional view in any season, but Biff thought the snowdrifts added a special charm. The antique 1785 Dundee grandfather clock in the far corner chimed its eighth bell. It says eighth bell. That's not how it's fucking read. And written. Words. No apostrophe S. Time to go to work. Welcome, gentlemen. Gentlemen! Biff said as the select staff of CIA intelligence field officers and attachés filed into Rose Hill's spacious library. Jerry Riley, Biff's other personal bodyguard, who alternated with Tim Cochran. Tim needed some family time following the recent harrowing experience in Cortina, because he was the one who was shot, apparently. And some space from the Admiral, who was not happy about Biff getting shot on his watch. So the guy who doesn't get shot goes on a fucking vacation. The guy who does get shot, we gotta get him back in. Biff stood from his desk to greet them warmly, gregarious as always, despite his worn-out appearance. The attendees chose their own seats on plush, leather chairs and sofas. Documents were placed on the small conference table, equipped with multiple computer outlets and an interactive whiteboard, reproducing a mini Langley conference room. Biff disdained the customary CIA protocol. In home meetings, he preferred a relaxed atmosphere to deliberate the tense state of affairs. He found the approach more conducive to a productive exchange of opinions. His only deference to protocol was given respectfully to Admiral Delaney, who sat in a choice seat at the head of the table close to the fieldstone fireplace. As they took their seats, a waiter poured fresh mugs of coffee. While everyone finished their pastries, Biff mulled over the two new key players on his staff, appraising their roles and attributes. His new deputy, Tyler Dubane, appeared much younger than the 35 years stated in his resume. He was a fit triathlete, and his shaved head reminded Biff that following Annapolis, Tyler spent 5 years on a SEAL team in the Middle East. That stint ended when he courageously ran into a burning building to rescue a screaming Iraqi child. The building had blown up as he entered the doorway, ejecting him 10 yards into the street. The explosion had been triggered by remote control. Dubane had stumbled unwittingly into an Al-Qaeda booby trap, using the boy as live bait. No one ever figured out how he miraculously survived and recovered without a serious disability. But he did. Not a hint of PTSD. Post-traumatic stress disorder. We fucking know what that means! Everybody knows what PTSD is! Fuck you! Impacted the steady ascent of his distinguished career. His SEAL team jokingly suggested he do a Kevlar commercial. Tyler was living testimony of the body armor's effectiveness. Tyler casually greeted Biff, making good eye contact, apparently no worse for the wear. No apparent scars or limp. He was clean cut. No beard, tattoos, or piercings. That's what fucking clean cut means. You don't have to go into detail. Tyler had an engaging smile in the confident, laid-back manner typical of successful, self-assured young men. He was cool in the modern sense of the word. Not, he was cold and needed some heating up by the fireplace with a cuddle or two. No homo. Reminding Biff of some of the guys his son hung out with in San Francisco. Again. No homo. He was dressed to yuppie code in khakis and a polo shirt, with the iconic pony logo untucked. No sweater, no coat, and sporting Sperry topsiders with no socks on. Jesus Christ, this guy is obsessed with men's fashion. Tyler exuded an unflappable, exposed manner. Biff thought he was an instantly likable fellow, the kind that commanded attention. "Glad to meet you," Tyler said to Biff in Tim's voice. "Heard a lot of good things about you. Looking forward to working with you, sir." Biff quickly assessed him as tough as nails with a quick wit, a man who had his act together. The SEALs had awarded this brave man a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart after Fallujah, then prematurely eased him out to pasture with a handsome compensation package, thinking the horrific episode's psychological impact would make him unsuitable for future risky operations. He'd been burned in their subjective judgment and was a compromised asset that might jeopardize a field op if he freaked out under pressure or experienced a sudden flashback to his traumatic experience. The CIA's paramilitary counterterrorism division scooped him up, assessing his value as vastly different. As an intensive interview and a battery of psychological stress tests using objective data, they determined that his trauma would not hinder his future performance, but rather enhance it. Tyler was a good fit for the CIA's Special Activity Division. So, the SEAL's loss was the CIA's gain. Tyler was a young man with valuable, high-intensity experience. The agency saw it as a calculated gamble that would pay dividends down the road. I think we're going to beat this point completely and utterly to death, resurrect it, and then beat it to death again. Tyler proved the CIA's judgment in selecting him correct. An outlier 2 standard deviations to the right of the bell curve's mean. He definitely, Jesus fucking Christ. Can we just get to the story? Fit the CIA's Zero Dark 30 mold. A trained SEAL, perfect for the agency's increasing covert paramilitary needs for outstanding field operatives to counter mounting global threats in unsavory places. Tyler did not require retreading or retrofitting. Tyler is sexy. I want to marry Tyler. This is our Lawrence. I am gay for Tyler. I am really gay for Tyler. He was good to go from day one, as was the author. Being gay is not a problem, but Jesus Christ, if you're gonna be this, just fucking do it already. Holy shit. No homo. His decisions were reasoned and intuitive for the revamped counterterrorism division that BIFF Roberts was putting together. BIFF had reviewed Tyler's record, and Tyler had never disappointed them. He moved up to executive positions where he planned black ops, recruited assets, set up dark sites, and set up safe houses in remote African locations so uncivilized they defy description. You just described it. He'd battled malaria and won. Dodged venomous snakes in the Australian outback, and ambushed Islamist pirates terrorizing Somalia. He witnessed the affiliation of these savage extremists with the emerging AQIM. Winning was his mantra, the opposite of everybody else's, which was, hey, if we lose, whatever. It's cool. America. Executing missions flawlessly, his hallmark. Men loved to serve in his unit, the ultimate unspoken form of praise and commitment. Tyler wasn't just a macho man either. What is it? For once engaged in conversation, the young warrior's intellect became readily apparent. He was well-schooled, well-read, and well-versed in his assignments, and Tyler had quickly established a go-getter attitude that BIFF admired. His dossier praised his reputation for doing his homework, and for possessing unassailable dedication to getting the job done right, the first time. Footnotes also praised his sense of humor. Those qualities resonated with BIFF, and most importantly, Tyler had just returned from a CIA clandestine fact-finding mission, scoping out Syria, Lebanon, and Jordan. Having first-hand knowledge of that confused, violent situation was a definite plus. We are now going to spend the next 5 chapters detailing Tyler in even more depth. No job too big, no detail too small. BIFF recalled from reading Tyler's CIA dossier. BIFF thought he lucked out getting Tyler as a deputy. And there's quotation marks at the end of that, and I don't know why. You didn't edit your goddamn book. BIFF's attention then turned to Adam Butler, a career NSA CIA hybrid. Your terrible writing is getting to my brain. Almost BIFF's age, both have been getting around the block. They had never met, but were quite familiar with each other's accomplishments and shared a mutual respect. Butler, not BIFF, represented the traditional Ivy League groomed spook, well attired, intelligent, well-mannered. He was knowledgeable in SIGINT and human, signals and human intelligence. His New England multi-generational WASP pedigree, that's not fucking something to brag about. Go fuck off somewhere. And premier education with its inherent connections didn't hurt his advancements. Exeter Prep, Princeton, undergrad, and Harvard's Kennedy School of International Relations had helped pave the way. But Butler's success and leadership were not solely bestowed by the privilege of an elite birthright. He earned it through merit. This impressed Biff, who was devoted to meritocracy. As Napoleon expressed it, la carrière ouverte aux les talents, or let the path be open to talents. I probably butchered that. I'm sorry to the French. Biff wasn't a fan of policies that detracted from meritocracy like affirmative action. Which he considered an overworked, banal instrument of social engineering that had outlived its original purpose, despite the fact that black people are still treated terribly in the United fucking States. And if given the option of hiring a black guy or a white guy and turning the black guy away, a lot of places in the South would happily turn the black person away, which is why the fucking law is there in the first fucking place, because there's still racist assholes running around the country. Go fuck yourself. The noble idea had run amok from folks trying to make everyone equal, forgetting the Constitution guarantees only equal opportunity, but doesn't protect people from people actually being racist. That's why the law is there. Just because the Constitution guarantees it doesn't mean that people are going to follow it. I'd like to quote a statement used in rebuttal against anti-gun laws. Criminals don't give a shit about the law. Biff felt strongly that if carried to an extreme, the concept would engender a mediocre society with little motivation, as opposed to an unregulated free market in which the rich will basically just price out the poor and everybody will fucking fall apart. In Biff's opinion, affirmative action and PC promoted a negative psychology of victimization. Even though if somebody is victimized, they should be compensated and protected and helped. And there are actual victims, not you. R. Lawrence, you are not a victim. Stop it. A disincentive to work, not true, and reflected hypersensitivity. You mean like crying for fucking 5 chapters about goddamn 1 billion Muslims because one person got shot by one person? Holy shit. You can't keep the persona up with this shit. You just can't. At its worst, it rewarded an inability or unwillingness to compete on a level playing field. Because there is no level playing field! That's what's leveling the fucking playing field! How fucking stupid are you? Affirmative action seemed to offer an opportunity to game the system. Every system has loopholes. Every system has people who will fuck with it. Every system has moochers and leechers. There is no perfect system. Stop crying. For someone who's talking about hypersensitivity, you have spent at least 2 paragraphs here being fragile over people trying to make sure that black people don't keep getting treated like fucking property. And given the same opportunities that are always given to white people all the fucking time. Without question. Seriously. This is sad. It's like the dipshit's manifesto here. God, power through it. Power through it. America! From Biff's perspective, such social engineering tools in many respects took advantage of a free democratic society in where normally white people would just tell black people go fuck themselves because they legally could. No denying that many game the system, despite having no fucking facts to back up that statement, but previously you talked about how liberals can't handle facts that are indisputed. This is making my head fucking spin. While enemies exploited. Who the fuck is exploiting affirmative action here in the United States that is our enemy? What fucking planet are you on? That last category worried him the most as counterterrorism director, because all of the 9/11 pilots took advantage of affirmative action. He was a strong proponent of awarding only merit and positive performance, which is not something that normally happens, which is why affirmative action had to happen in order to give those people the exact same chances that white people were given. And it will only go away once we get rid of a white-centric society and start naturally treating all people of color as if they are the same, because they fucking are. Not everyone got a ribbon or a medal, except for the fucking Confederates. They got fucking statues for losing. For just showing up. Confederates. Definitive favorable outcomes counted in his profession. He couldn't recall any affirmative action field operatives who were still alive, because we decided to write that all the fucking black people and people of color were fucking terrible at their jobs because they got up there only by affirmative action. Not because that they actually had the skills and the stats and might have been looked over previously had it not been for affirmative action. But hey, let's make a sweeping generalization of all people of color who got up there through affirmative action, because we don't fucking understand how it works. Yeah, R. Lawrence, you're a great fucking writer. True blue American. Fuck yeah! Spies had to discriminate, sweat the details, and employ all means at their disposal to succeed in the clandestine world, and more importantly, to prevent mass disasters. There was no time to get caught up in tedious social issues and deliberations. How fucking long is this gonna go on about how much this guy is upset by fucking affirmative action and political correctness? Like, seriously, how fucking fragile are you as a human being, R. Lawrence, that you have spent now, what is this? Let me just double check this here. Okay, so we're now on page 2 of you crying about affirmative action. Holy shit, you are fragile, more fragile than a fucking Fabergé egg. You are more fragile than the china that my parents keep in their fucking cabinet. You are fucking fragile. Holy shit. You, my friend, need to be wrapped in bubble wrap and placed in a nice, safe cardboard box somewhere in a little corner by yourself, so no person of color will ever harm your precious bubble world. Successful operatives were expert and swift at conflict resolution, no matter their background. They performed meritoriously and had their buddies back. That was what it was all about in this real world. Butler had proven himself this type of successful operative, a senior expert in spycraft, a perfect counterpoise to young Tyler. Butler had served for years as the executive officer for Ralph Whitley, Biff's esteemed predecessor, who had just retired. Whitley spoke highly of Butler and assured Biff that Butler would smooth the transition. Butler strikingly resembled the late Walter Cronkite in appearance and demeanor. The classic mustache matched his wavy white hair. His measured speech and classic analysis reminded Biff of the detailed newscast by the Dean of Journalism. It would be difficult for anyone not to like him. Biff had reviewed his spotless record closely. He noticed Butler wore an orthopedic neck collar, puzzling him. "What happened to you, Adam?" Biff asked. "A drunk driver ran a red light in Georgetown. T-boned me while I was driving Ann Whitley home. She has a pelvic fracture and a blood clot in her lung. She's on a respirator and anticoagulants. Ralph's beside himself. Hasn't left the hospital. I got off relatively easily with whiplash." "Sorry to hear that." Biff wished he hadn't asked. Admiral Delaney hastened to remind him, "That's why you had to come back on short notice, Biff. Ralph had to attend to this personal crisis, and you've got to pick up the slack. Sorry, I know you can shoulder the load, even under the present circumstances." "I understand," Biff said. "Sorry to hear about the accident. Let's hope for the best." After more coffee and pastries, they settled in for lengthy discussions in the pleasant environment of the farmhouse. Jerry had double-checked the security system earlier, ensuring their conversation would remain secret. The Admiral framed the deliberations by stating, imminent threats face us. Not existential threats, but imminent threats. He rattled them off without ceremony. Syria's civil war with its grave regional implications. Yemen's unrest, battling the resurgent AQ second-in-command, Nasser al-Wahasi, repeated AQAP terror attacks. China's increased cyber attacks. North Korea's recent missile tests attempting to develop an ICBM. Iran's existential threats. Book title! Of nuclear proliferation and state-sponsored terrorism through Quds and their proxies Hezbollah and Hamas. Iran threatening to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. Now the Iranians are collaborating with AQIM in Africa. It's mind-boggling how they network, proliferating their radical ideology. It didn't end with bin Laden's takedown, that's for sure. Biff added, there's still an imminent threat. Book 6. I'm concerned this action may provoke a preemptive strike by Israel, the Admiral added, triggering a wider war in the Middle East, drawing us into the fray. It may trigger World War III. We'll have to get World War III its own safe space, that snowflake. This statement brought a collective groan from the group. Admiral Delaney laid it all out. A virtual Pandora's box of dilemmas confronted them. The DoD needs a status report with our current estimates by the first of the week. So that means 8 to 10 hours a day here, with catered meals and lots of caffeine. We need to meet the deadline. Don't worry about the catering, Biff interjected. Patricia's staff will provide for us, Admiral. Not an imposition. Sure? Certain. Okay, Tyler, please present your overview. Biff requested, using the Admiral's voice admirably, in an amicable tone. You'll have our undivided attention. Returning to his regular voice. The young officer stood, smiled, and put his foot on his chair. He leaned over, resting his elbow on his knee, and looked around the room with confidential air, like he intended to let everyone in on a secret, or maybe tell a Huckabee. In fact, he was ready to confide top-secret intelligence that had just arrived minutes before this meeting. He knew this communique would blow them away. Okay, gentlemen, here's the situation. Chapter 7. Tyler's Briefing. The Admiral concisely outlined the global hotspots requiring our intelligence estimates, terming them existential threats. Book title! Tyler said, very appropriate terminology to describe the challenges we're up against, but some threats are more intimidating than the others. Some more imminent, some more urgent, some more existential. I'll stratify them in order of concern. Currently, Syria is the sum of all of our fears, he continued, immediately capturing their full attention. Why is that? WMDs. Biff stated the obvious. That's the game changer. Tyler nodded. You got it. French intelligence confirmed late last night that the Syrian military killed over 80 Sunni insurgents near Aleppo, up in northern Syria, using lethal sarin nerve gas. I think that's pretty sure that's a war crime. They fired the shells from a mobile artillery battery into the insurgents' dug-in position. I received this alarming information just before our meeting started. Some in the select CIA group shuddered at the unthinkable escalation in an already gruesome conflict, and couldn't wait to turn away the refugees from said conflict. Grim news had just become grimmer. Confirmed beyond a reasonable doubt? Biff asked. Well, documented evidence, nothing equivocal about it, Tyler replied. French intelligence reports countless others have respiratory symptoms and may die despite treatment. Brits, Israelis, and our other reliable Middle East assets have also confirmed our greatest fear. Assad's use of biochemical warfare with nerve gas agents outlined by the Geneva Conventions and UN Resolution 687. I don't think Assad is into conventions and resolutions, Biff responded. He's desperate. He's not one toke over the line like some alleged Gaddafi was in Libya, though. Assad knows exactly what he's doing. The Nazis developed sarin, but never used it against Allied forces. Assad has no such reservations, because let me tell you how reserved the fucking Nazis were. Biff could see the clear disgust in the group at Assad's horrific actions. Clearly worse than Hitler. But our job is not to debate the moral or humanitarian issues, Biff added. That's State Department business. Our task is to determine what precisely is at stake in the Syrian conflict, our vital national interests. Agreed, the use of sarin gas is deplorable. Thank God you're clarifying that. But the existential threat, book title, to us is this WMD falling into the hands of terrorists. A realistic scenario if Assad falls. Do we still need to ask ourselves why the U.S. needs a dog in this fight? That's the essence of our considerations, Biff! Tyler moved to the smartboard beside the table and brought up a graphic showing the Syrian players. Here's the complicated Syrian background in a nutshell. Basically, it's a sectarian civil war configured like a kaleidoscope of power groups. The Syrian hostilities are playing out in insurgent Sunni rebel forces and Assad's military. The Free Syrian Army, FSA, is made up of about 25,000 military defectors and volunteers. They're conducting guerrilla warfare in Assad's Alawite Shiites, who represent the powerful ruling minority. In Syria, Assad controls the military, thus rules the country with an iron fist. But this civil war is not a straightforward proposition as it might first appear. How's that? Butler asked. The situation is complicated by outside influences trying to control the outcome. Syria is Iran's major ally in the Middle East, and Iran is meddling to preserve that relationship. Both Syria and Iran are sponsored with significant Russian military aid. Adding to the situation's complexity, in Syria's case, Russia is providing sophisticated air defense systems consisting of modern surface-to-air missiles, S-300s. Needless to say, this makes any aerial interdiction risky. Tyler paused for effect. Everyone appeared cognizant of the implications of Russia's bold move, and they couldn't wait to join forces with them and kiss their asses repeatedly. The tipping point is approaching in a 2-year-old conflict, Tyler continued. Syria maintains uncontested air superiority against an inadequate rebel defense and is bombing the hell out of them. Over 100,000 mostly civilians have died. No guess at the number of refugees fleeing the country. It appears Assad's forces will eventually prevail by conducting a savage war without concern for collateral damage. Dismal outlook, Butler commented. Maybe too late for us to come involved. What do you think? The circumstances for rebel success are diminishing, Tyler agreed. The situation is deteriorating. Iran has dispatched 2,000 Revolutionary Guard into the fray, led by General Hassan Shatari, aka Hussam Koshnevich, who also has long-term ties to Hezbollah. Does that name ring a bell? Long-time covert Quds operative, Butler noted immediately. No question. Hezbollah is a proxy for Iran. If they prevail, Iran will be emboldened. Shatari is coordinating Iran's interest. Right on. Shatari has been the major player in the Revolutionary Guard's relationship with Hezbollah for well over a decade, Tyler said. The IRGC general was an undercover Quds agent for years in Beirut. A master spy posing as an Iranian Reconstruction Project civilian engineer in Lebanon. His cover was a clever deception while conspiring with Hassan Nasrallah, Hezbollah's numero uno, to undermine Lebanon's secular government. Now Shatteri's out of the shadows, interfering in Syria.
How is his role actually playing out in Syria?
Biff asked. Shatteri's enlisted Hezbollah involvement with 3,000 strong, experienced militiamen to join the Syrian fight, commanded by Naim Qasim, the terrorist organization's number 2 man to Nasrallah. These fighters come uncontested across the border from the safe haven in Lebanon. Let's face it, the Syrian conflict has essentially become a proxy for Iran, like Adam said, testing our response.
You jog my memory, Tyler.
Biff interjected.
Shatteri participated in Syria's nuclear facility construction at Al-Kabar using North Korean technology.
That's actually book 6.
I recall the Israeli Air Force destroyed the plutonium reactor in 2007.
You're right, Biff. Same guy. Israeli F-15s jammed their radar and bombed the hell out of the site, terminating Syria's program. It was a classic IDF-Mossad joint operation. A surgical strike, Biff said, imitating Tyler.
Sayeret Special Forces highlighted the reactor with laser designators to enhance the F-15's targeting with their Maverick missiles. Prior to the attack, they had hacked the computer of the head of Syria's Atomic Energy Commission, confirming their suspicions of plutonium production at the facility. Another example of why not to mess with the Israelis. I'm gonna go butt fuck the Israelis a whole hell of a lot more, because we fucking love Israel. Never mind the fact that they actually do recognize Sharia law in their government courts.
A case study in covert ops, Tyler responded. Shateri is definitely a high-value target we can't pass up should an opportunity arise. We need to put his elimination date on our calendar.
No question about that, Tyler.
Biff agreed.
His shelf life is about to expire. At some point, somebody's got to take him out. I'm certain Mossad already has him in their sights and is tracking his activity. I'll check with our Qaidon colleagues. But we're digressing. Let's stay focused on our immediate problem. Syria's WMDs and the insurgent status. Tell us about the rebel opposition's makeup.
The rebel side involves more breeds than a yard dog, Tyler said, eliciting laughs all around. Fucking hell. It's like the applause sign. It's so fucking sad. Including a guffaw from the somber admiral because he's such a fucking wit. Delaney was worried about the tricky situation and the CIA's time constraints to come up with intelligence estimates and recommendations, but even he appreciated Tyler's colorful descriptions. You've got Kurds, Tyler continued. And wait, Turkmen, Palestinians, and Druze, joining the local FSA rebellion under the command of Generals Salim Idris, known as the Diplomat, and Mustafa al-Sheikh, the Soldier. Mustafa has a rep for huge cojones, a fearless dude. Colonel Riyadal al-Assad is their top battalion commander. Good reputation, also kicks ass, big time. Probably we can rely on him if a deal goes down for us to supply armaments. That's a tenuous proposition. He's a legitimate field commander by all indications, judging from our Turkish allies' assessment of his battlefield performance.
Good to know,
Biff commented, enjoying Tyler's straight-to-the-point briefing, devoid of BS. Tyler pressed on, not missing a beat. Due to multiple factions, dealing with the disparate fighting units all with different agendas, there is a disarray in the FSA ranks. Actually, a hodgepodge of special interest groups. General Idris states the FSA has no political aspirations. His goal is solely to overthrow Assad and his government. I actually believe him.
He's trustworthy?
Biff said. Yes, Idris appears a sincere, dedicated rebel leader. A good man, but organizing the FSA front is like herding rabbits. Complicating the picture, radical Islamist Sunni fighters from Qatar and Saudi Arabia have joined the battle against Shiites. Also involved are Syrian-led Jabhat al-Nusra Sunnis from Iraq, who have strong al-Qaeda links. Throw in another more radical Islamist AQ offshoot, because why the fuck not? Let's just put them all fucking in. It's like baby's first Tom Clancy. From Iraq, ISIS, and you've got a growing outside rebel influence consisting of splintered Islamist factions. This is particularly worrisome. ISIS? Butler asked.
Islamic State of Iraq, or Al-Sham,
answered Biff. How the fuck do these people not know who ISIS is? They're in a super important CIA counterterrorism group and they'd never have heard of ISIS? What? You have got to be fucking kidding me. It gets worse. You bet your ass it does. Or as they would like to say in this book, you bet your sweet ass it does. Tyler went on. Some other outside Middle Eastern fighters are also hardcore AQ and Muslim Brotherhood players, namely Ansar al-Islam and Jund Allah. They maintain brigades that captured one of Assad's air defense bases last month near Hajar al-Aswad, south of Damascus. Recently, Yemen AQAP fighters are showing up, further complicating matters. Must be confusing to identify the good guys among that ragtag crowd, Butler commented. What a mishmash. You bet it's a mishmash, Tyler answered. Holy fuck. They don't wear black or white hats. It's very difficult to identify and sort out the various groups in the war zones. It's like a massive flash mob with no organization. You'd need a fucking program with large numbers on the backs of the various fighting units to ID the players. Everyone enjoyed a hearty laugh at that observation. The kings of right-wing comedy here, folks. Like Cedric the Bominator. These FSA dudes dress in street clothes, Tyler added. They blend in with the populace. It's like they're having tea in a curbside cafe one minute, then popping the bad guys the next with AK-47s or RPGs or rocket-propelled grenades. Just in case you guys in the CIA didn't know what that means. That is an acronym, which is the shortening of words into letters. Hopefully that helped you understand. In other words, who in the hell can you trust? And, of course, these factions have conflicting agendas. Let me tell you, this conflict is a rat fuck, a complicated, mixed bag full of potential pitfalls. So it appears, the Admiral commented, Syria is a haphazard killing field. War doesn't determine who is right, it determines who is left. But you hate the left. See what I fucking did there? Yeah! What do you advise we do? How big a role should we play? My recommendation is that our primary objective should be containing or destroying Syria's WMDs, Tyler responded. Get in and out quickly. Not a slam dunk proposition by any means, but a hell of a lot better than getting deeply involved in another ground war over there. A good capsule summary, Tyler, There was a capsule summary that went on for fucking ever. Biff said, grinning in appreciation. He thought this guy was going to work out fine. Obviously, Assad is desperate. Biff said, his Damascus empire is becoming a Potemkin village. He's running out of sand in his hourglass, so he's pulling out all the stops. Why else would he resort to the heinous use of sarin gas on his own citizens? No diplomatic options exist that would be a journey, not a destination. Nifty metaphors, Biff. No, they're fucking not, Butler commented with a merry glint in his eyes, ribbing him. Jocularity! Butler found Biff and Tyler's colorful style refreshing. Jesus Christ, they are all about each other. Just get the gay orgy over with already. Holy fuck. From the bureaucratic doublespeak that permeated the government, these guys said what was on their mind. Only a Yale grad could come up with that erudite Potemkin village reference. Butler joshed. Biff! The Admiral laughed at the spirited exchange. Jesus Christ, I don't need to know every fucking time. He predicted this counterterrorism team he put together would produce results. Maybe not the results they were hoping for, but the results will fucking happen. Biff enjoyed the banter. I would assume that because he fucking laughed. I forgot Harvard had a liberal arts program, Adam. I'm impressed you got my literary allusion. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, reader. Are you thinking that I'm smart enough yet? Do I live up to your liberal college ideals? Am I one of you kids? Hey, how you doing? Biff said with a good-natured grin before returning to the topic of Syria. Indeed, the Syrian situation is complex and problematic. Biff continued, we're data rich, but knowledge poor in dealing with that conflict. Seems it's always that way in that region. No ready solutions. As I see it, we want to avoid becoming embroiled in a sectarian civil war in the Middle East for 4 geopolitical reasons. First, consider the lessons learned in Iraq and Afghanistan. Ask yourself, how did our vital interests play out over there 10 years? Talk about a confusing mixed bag. I understand your frustration, Tyler. Biff offered his understanding of the futility of military success without capturing the hearts and minds of the indigenous population. He'd spent 6 years in Vietnam. He appreciated the comparable circumstances in the Middle East. Second, the Great Recession has left the U.S. severely in debt. I wonder who caused that. Basically, we're too broke to get involved in another major conflict over there. But by God, we fucking will. We simply cannot afford to continue being the world's cop. But by God, we'll fucking try. Third, consider the Arab Spring. The number of regimes that have fallen from inside rebellions without our costly intervention. And sometimes with our costly intervention. 60% of Syria's population is under the age of 30, like most of the other countries in the Middle East. The youth tend to be secular, moderate. They don't think like their ideological leaders, much less share their radical Islamic values, which is the only Islamic value that anybody can ever have. There's no such thing as a standard Islamic person. They're all radical. Radical. Why not let that generation sort it out amongst themselves and decide how they desire to be governed? Not a bad idea, Butler opined. But Biff pressed on before he could elaborate. Our goal should be attaining liberty for them, not instilling or enforcing democracy, if I can make that subtle distinction. It may be in their case that liberty is worth dying for, while democracy is an advanced concept or logical progression of liberty they may have not thought through intellectually. Jesus, I can't even finish this sentence. It is so fucking stupid. You are up your own fucking ass. We don't even have a democracy here in the United Goddamn States. We're a fucking republic. If we had a goddamn democracy, Trump wouldn't have fucking won because more people voted for Clinton than they did for fucking Trump. You stupid goddamn son of a bitch. Don't fucking throw around bullshit democratic garbage like it's the highest form of fucking government when it's been proven for how many fucking years that it's failed miserably because we can't fucking regulate it properly because stupid, greedy, rich, white assholes keep crying and bitching and moaning the whole fucking time. I'm sorry for diverging again, but you're being a fucking asshole. Back to the story. Interesting distinction. Biff! No, it's not, Admiral Delaney commented. A subtle point, but probably an accurate perspective. Butler agreed, using the Admiral's voice. As I see it, Biff said, it's best not to intervene directly, especially with ground forces. How many American lives is Syria worth? We should be more circumspect based on our recent and past experiences in the Middle East. Got that right, Butler said. How can we identify with their extremist Islamist mindset? Biff said. Comprehend their oppressive Sharia laws. Yeah, unlike trying to keep gay people from getting married, serve in the military, letting trans people actually be who they really fucking are. Basically banning gay people from holding office, banning anybody who doesn't have religion from holding any kind of office. Yeah, I can't understand how we could ever cope with the oppressive rulings of Islamic nations. Oh yeah, and Israel does recognize Sharia law in their courts. That is a fact. Go fucking look it up. So if you're gonna, ass kiss and jerk off Israel throughout this entire book, you might want to fucking know that ahead of time. The shared Islamic ideology of extremist Muslims and Persians in that region, it's time to act only in our own vital interest. The group murmured their agreement. Most thought Biff's points were on target, all except Butler, who had some reservations. He spoke up. You have to factor in the administration's credibility issue in the equation, Butler said. The red line admonition regarding sarin gas. If no action is taken in Syria, how will Iran respond to our warnings not to develop a nuclear bomb? He wasn't a sophist, but a confirmed realist. Issues like this deeply disturbed him. That's a sticky issue, Adam, Biff said. Tough call. I'm advocating surgical strike, not invasion, aimed at destroying their WMDs. I see, but action must be effective, not cosmetic, Butler contended. Agreed. Let me get to my fourth point of why we should gradually pull out of the Middle East. It's actually a good idea, the only decent idea we've seen in this book so far. It's like there's smatterings of vaguely intelligent thought and recognizing how complex these issues are, and then broad sweeping them under fuck the Muslims. That's basically what this book is saying, is fuck the Muslims. And I disagree. I want to make that very fucking clear. I don't agree with that. I support Muslims. I don't support terrorism. And I don't want anybody flagging this fucking thing and acting like a jackass thinking that I support that kind of bullshit. So let me make it very fucking clear where I stand on this matter, as if it hasn't been apparent prior. There are two types of people in this world. People who adhere to their beliefs and they treat others with respect, and people who take those beliefs, pervert them, and use them to hurt, harm, and otherwise murder people. Okay? Not all Muslims are terrorists. It's a fact. It is a fact. Islam is not a terrorist religion any more than Christianity is. And if you think that it is, you're a fucking moron. You're a bigot, you are stupid, and you should probably stop voting. Let me get back to the story now. Fourth, Biff continued, consider the emergence of modern U.S. petroleum technology. Take modern fracking techniques as a prime example. Our oil and gas industry can not only make us energy dependent, but a net exporter. OPEC would no longer have us over the barrel, literally or figuratively. If we don't need their oil, we can disengage from that volatile region. And we could do that by getting rid of oil completely and going towards clean energy, but don't want to do that because we love the oil company.
If we start overtly taking sides in Syria's civil war, we risk offending 200 million Shiites or angering 1.2 billion Sunnis. It's a no-win situation, a delicate balance that really shouldn't matter to us. We need to get over it. We must act in our enlightened self-interest.
Holy fuck the arrogance. We're so enlightened. We're so much more civil. We're so fucking great. That's why we're killing trans people every fucking year. That's why we're killing, bombing abortion clinics and shooting up fucking schools because we're so goddamn civilized. So much more so than all these other savage countries out there, right? Yeah, America!
Participate in covert action only, and not get caught up in that Washington military intervention mind game.
Seems like a reasonable approach, Butler commented. Maybe we can offer some assistance, Tyler said. Leave a minimal footprint by giving logistic support and feeding the rebels intelligence. But our prime focus definitely should be targeting Syria's WMDs, sarin nerve gas, preventing its use and its dissemination.
Here,
Admiral Delaney said. Good summation, Biff and Tyler. But shouldn't we seriously consider providing small armaments to the rebels through Turkish or Jordanian intermediates? Level the playing field. I concur we must do something decisive quickly regarding the atrocious use of sarin gas. But shouldn't we recommend the DOD to provide some modicum of military support to the FSA? They have a long road to hoe. We should funnel the weapons through Turkey or Jordan, the Admiral continued. Prince Bandar of Saudi Arabia has stepped up, establishing a secret aid training base for the insurgents in Jordan. We already have covered CIA paramilitary personnel there vetting and training the FSA. Qatar is providing tons of cash and munitions. Jordan's King Abdullah denies all of this activity, of course. Of course, amazing how far Wasta can take you in the Middle East, Butler chimed in, smiling at his observation, because he's so fucking smart and smug. Remember how smug and shitty the liberals are, right, fellas? Yeah! Prince Bandar's an all-star over there.
Wasta?
Biff asked. Arabic for the under-the-table clout money, Butler responded. DC's Saudi ambassador, Adel Al-Jubair, let me in on that quaint Arabic custom. Under-the-table jobs exist in the U.S. It's not just Arabic. I worked an under-the-table job. I got paid in cash. You're dumb. Basically, the Sunnis want to prevail in Syria against Assad's Shiite government. No love lost there. Interesting observation, Butler, Admiral Delaney said, regarding the Saudi influence in the Syrian debacle. Prince Bandar obviously has a personal interest in the Syrian outcome, playing the role of financier. Please continue, gentlemen. Expand your opinions on our options in that respect. What do you think, Biff?
The DOD doesn't need more opinions,
Biff responded.
Just more good opinions. I've considered...
And you thought that was a smart fucking sentence to write.
I've considered the possibility of supporting the insurgents with manpads, portable surface-to-air anti-craft missiles, capable of being fired from a rebel shoulder, and providing a limited number of anti-tank weapons to level the field.
Isn't that a bit affirmative action for weapons?
Possibly supply them M4, M16 rifles, some rockets, or wire-guided missiles. But I seriously worry, what if these high-tech weapons fall into the wrong hands? Say, AQ or Hezbollah? Israel would be placed at an enormous risk and would never forgive us if we screw up, because we have never never supplied the wrong people with weapons in the U.S. history. The Islamic radicals would use them against Israel in a New York minute.
Important considerations to debate, the Admiral replied. But is that a risk we must take? Consider the risks and benefits carefully. What about bombing their airfields to negate Syria's Air Force advantage? Also risky, but our stealth aircraft could pull it off. Biff went into more detail.
F-22 Raptors could get the job done overnight, but if we advise the DoD to go that route, I suggest taking out our new F-35 Lightning II's capability in a live fire situation. This multi-role fighter can carry 2 GBU-12 pave-way laser-guided bombs to take out the runways, plus Sidewinder missiles to destroy the control tower, as well as damage hangars and planes on the ground. The plane's 5th-generation stealth technology eludes not only radar, but infrared and UV detection. The stealth factor advantage is huge, ensuring the plane delivers a destructive target payload. A small squadron could get the job done. Let's keep that option open to run up DoD's flagpole, okay?
Biff surveyed the group's reaction. It seemed positive. Surprised none of them fucking laughed. I'm for that F-35 option big time, Tyler enthusiastically added. It should neutralize the side's air superiority overnight. Definitely should be recommended to DoD. And there's right after overnight, there's a end quotation marks, and now the rest of the sentence is open. Did nobody proofread this fucking book? Definitely should be recommended to DoD. What do you think about a no-fly zone as an alternative? If they nix that plan?
I'll make sure the F-35 option is on their drawing board.
Biff acknowledged.
A no-fly zone is a fallback plan.
F-22s or F-35s? Butler asked.
The F-35 strikes my first choice, Biff said. A no-fly zone is a consideration, but not without inherent risks. Not high on my wish list, but maybe a default option.
I'm not certain either about your third consideration for not getting too involved.
Biff!
Your Arab Spring comment. Butler broke in.
How's that, Adam?
Biff asked. Leaders were toppled in Egypt, Tunisia, Libya, and Yemen, Butler said. How'd that work out? I'll tell you how. With the unintended consequences of unwarranted Muslim Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda influence, not democratic reforms. And the people are still not free. Liberty remains a pipe dream for the masses. The Arab Spring yielded continued unrest and tragedy, widening sectarian schisms propagated by dogmatic leaders. Certainly not a positive outcome in those countries. Completely unlike the positive outcome in our country in 2016. Am I right, folks?
Good point. I must agree, Biff said, nodding. We don't do nation building well.
No shit.
But most importantly, we suffer no loss of personnel, except for Benghazi.
Oh dear fucking God. Please don't fucking bring that up. Really?
Following the conflict. Granted, things didn't turn out over there like we expected, but at least we didn't get involved in another large war.
Holy shit, we're actually, moving past it. It's not gonna become, a thing. That's new.
Large war in an unstable region, racked with turmoil, factions, and ideology so foreign to us.
Oh, but really not.
A civil war could easily turn into a regional conflict. We should act only in our vital national interest from here on out. As I said earlier, I can't emphasize it enough. Will we ever learn our lessons?
No, we fucking won't. History has a way of repeating itself, Admiral Delaney commented dourly.
We must heed the lessons of history in order to prevent repeating our mistakes, Biff said.
Even though, as this book progresses, I'm pretty sure they're going to repeat all of the mistakes our country has made.
Take Vietnam, for example. My first experience in the unintended consequences of not learning the lessons of history. It's like we have national amnesia of lessons learned. Yes, we get it. We keep forgetting the stupid fucking things we as a nation have fucking done. We get it. We fucking get it. Is it annoying when I repeat the words we get it? Because it's fucking annoying when you keep repeating the same thought over and over for 5 goddamn paragraphs in a fucking row.
Hopefully Syria will be different, Biff, Butler commented.
Let's hope so, Biff said. The big picture is Iran wants to preserve the Shiite crescent and its key ally, Syria. So, you could argue it's in our vital interest if Syria falls in that respect. Strategically, it would hurt Iran, who, as we all know, is fomenting incredible unrest in the region by pursuing a nuclear bomb and threatening to blow Israel off the map.
You know, unlike Israel constantly attacking Palestine.
No question that Syria plays into their long-range plans.
Given the opportunity, Admiral Delaney interjected, I believe Iran's militant government would carry out their ominous threat against Israel.
Israel views them as an existential threat. Book title! And has contingency plans for a preemptive strike on Iran's nuclear facilities. Biff said. They already have staging plans set up in Azerbaijan airfields next door to Iran.
Do you blame them? Butler commented. Smart move. I'd say it's a great strategy using those 3 old Russian airstrips. He was an Israeli hawk. No shit. I'm sure they all are.
No, I don't blame them. Biff replied. I think Israel's restraint to...
Oh my god, we're gonna just kiss Israel's ass now.
Israel's restraint to this point is remarkable. But getting back to Syria...
Hold on, so Iran threatening it to blow the fuck out of Israel and murder all of them. You know, that's obviously an awful thing. But all the Nazis here in America talking about killing all the black people and all the trans people, we should hear them out, we should give them a platform, and we should call them the alt-right. Which is the viewpoint of both the left and the fucking right, because you're all fucking morons. But I just want to make that fucking clear, that it's wrong when Iran does it, but it's okay when people here in the US fucking do it, right? Alright, just so we're on the same fucking page here.
But getting back to Syria, Biff added, Russia raises another thorny issue in its desire to maintain influence in the region by supplying military material to Assad. I see a historical parallel to the Spanish Civil War in the 1930s, when Italy and Germany backed Franco's fascist regime. Russia's backing a fascist Syrian regime.
Wow, something negative about Russia? Holy shit.
These are not easy decisions, but the DoD needs our estimates next week. We need to present them a feasible set of options based on our intelligence, best and worst case scenarios.
Spanish Civil War. Interesting analogy. You must have stayed awake in class at Yale. Biff! Admiral Delaney kidded, huckabeeing it all over the place.
Biff grinned. Had a great history professor.
It was Admiral fucking Delaney.
We must carefully examine our alternatives. Biff continued. The State Department is caught up in the humanitarian aspects. The bloodshed is heartrending, but we can't strive to save the world year after year. But damn it, we'll fucking try. We're running short on resources.
So let's just, go jump into another goddamn war with fucking Iran. Let's jump into a war in Iraq. Let's jump into a war with fucking Afghanistan. Let's jump into a war with fucking Canada. Yeah, let's start a war with Canada and fucking Mexico. Let's just fucking go to war with everybody.
Let's concentrate on concrete measures that could influence the Syrian outcome in our favor without committing troops. Boots on the ground, as the politicians love to say.
But Biff, shouldn't we do something material to assist the rebels? Admiral Delaney persisted. At least something beyond symbolic political gestures.
I understand the other aspects of the problem, Admiral, but I urge us to maintain our focus on the key issue of not allowing the further use of WMDs and prevent them from falling into the wrong hands. particularly AQ's or Hezbollah's. That's our vital interest, our big dog in the fight.
That's a strong point of argument, the Admiral conceded. The DoD and Joint Chiefs will resolve the arms supply problem no matter what we recommend, sir, Tyler added. We can hedge on that tricky issue for now. We have most of Libya's captured weapons, which we could ship covertly through Turkey. First, we must determine who we can trust in Syria.
Good point, Butler said. Spot on.
Biff emphatically stated.
The only reason to become involved, as I see it, is the WMDs. That demands swift action, something that makes a dramatic statement.
I agree, Butler remarked. It's paramount that we not allow WMDs further use, or for them to fall into AQ's or Hezbollah's possession under any circumstance. We need to act swiftly, concentrating on that objective.
You hit the nail on the head, Adam. All agreed?
Biff asked. The group murmured their collective agreement.
Then we have to secure the WMDs before reaching that threatening point in the conflict.
Biff! Butler actually interjected, mocking Biff. Destroy or secure the nerve gas as soon as possible, before they use it again. Easier said than done, Adam, Tyler retorted. As I related, it's a mess over there. We lack the critical assets in Syria. We don't know who to trust, who we can rely on to get the job done. Sending in a SEAL team would be suicidal and bombing risky with the modern air defenses Russia recently provided Syria, even with stealth bombers. We know where most of the WMDs are stored, but not all the critical coordinates of the storage garrisons, unfortunately, or even how many. They probably spread them all over the countryside.
Israeli and Jordanian intelligence are busy finding out that information,
Biff said.
They have reliable assets and infiltrated inside Syria. We'll soon have that critical knowledge.
Then once located, Butler politely added, we must somehow destroy those WMD storage sites. WMD storage sites. Didn't need to pluralize WMD there. Butler paused, frowning. How do they store the nerve gas anyway? Sarin is unstable and degrades in months, Tyler said. So, they added stabilizing chemical agents that allow the sarin to be stored in sealed aluminum casings. The nerve gas is colorless and odorless, so a leak would be extremely dangerous. In binary weapons, the two precursors that activate the gas are stored in a separate chamber of the shell casing, mixed to form the lethal agent before or while the shell is in flight. This has the dual benefit of solving the stabilization problem and ensuring safety of storage.
I see you've done your homework, Tyler.
Biff complimented. The Admiral knew it was rare for anyone to one-up Biff. They definitely had a good team going. The discussion went on for hours, as I'm sure it fucking did. Alternatives debated back and forth into the evening. Finally, Biff suggested adjournment and dinner. His shoulder was aching, and he needed medication. As do fucking I, and I'm sure everybody else who's fucking watched this video. As everyone headed for the dining room, he took a pain pill and motioned for Tyler to consult with him.
How secure is my international communication system here?
Biff asked. Langley quality, safe and sound. Why?
Need a place to call to Tel Aviv.
Tyler frowned. It's the middle of the night over there.
It can't wait.
But you know what can wait? You for the next riveting chapter of R. Langley's Existential Threats, starring BIFF Roberts, and more gripping, insightful, in-depth discussions of affirmative action, Muslims, and the state of the world and how amazing America fucking is. It's not a bad place to live, but you gotta tone the jingoism down, you stupid piece of shit. Thank you guys for watching so much. Hope you enjoyed these chapters, and I'll see you next time in the War Room. This is Dirk Hardleck reminding you to stay locked, stay loaded, stay America!